The following is a special presentation of 11 Alive News and Untold Atlanta with Matt Pearl.
Are we ready for public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, one moment.
I'm calling because I have a concern. It's unreasonable to think that anyone would close our city jail.
We have to do everything we can right now to make our city safer.
Converting the city jail to other uses would be a nightmare.
These offenders can be put in jail and know that they're going to stay there for a while.
Yeah. But nobody's talking about a solution other than putting people back in jail. I actually feel for those people because they do not know what public safety is. Public safety is just not putting a person in jail and letting them back to the street with nothing. So we got work to do to turn that around. I am Marilyn Wynn. Do I need to look there or look at you?
You can look at me.
Okay. So I'm Marilyn Wynn, and I'm the Executive Director of Women on the Rise. I am also formerly incarcerated. Born and raised right here in the city of Atlanta. I think maybe the first hood or the first ghetto, Buttermilk Bottom, which is now Ophir Ward. A family member taught me how to shoplift. At the age of 17, I was arrested. And when I went to court at 18, I was sentenced to 2 years in prison.
So the first time you were arrested, you got 2 years for shoplifting?
Yes. And I served 16 months. Actually served 7 prison sentences, 40, 50 arrests.
Do you remember the first time you went to the Atlanta City Detention Center?
I do. My role is to close a facility that society thinks help people, but it doesn't. It actually harms people. ACDC was actually built during the times of the Olympics.
To the city of Atlanta.
In 1990, once Atlanta wins the bid for the Olympic Games, Atlanta is the most violent city in the United States, has the highest homeless population. It has the highest dropout.
There was a tremendous amount of gang activity, gang shootings, violence. I was a young African-American male, and the trend at the time in the country is that African-American males were the #1 murder victims in all of the major cities in the country, including Atlanta.
You know, this notion of the city too busy to hate, the notion of Hotlanta, the notion of the Black Mecca, you see that it has holes in it.
Atlanta.
When Atlanta wins the Olympic Games, there is a real effort to hide all of the poverty.
I mean, that was a running joke that, if there was a big convention in town, that the streets would be swept and homeless people would be incarcerated. And there's some truth to that.
It makes no sense to persecute somebody, put them in jail because they don't have a place to live.
Will not let them come forward and present this lie to the world about what this city is.
The jail was built as the first building to prepare Atlanta for the 1996 Olympic Games. Atlanta was about to be presented to the rest of the world.
Atlanta is really franchising itself for world consumption. And so this is a part of a facelift to not only incarcerate those that have committed crimes, but also the homeless. The Dirty South hip hop movement, they're actually being critical. They actually make references to the Atlanta Detention Center, and they actually refer to it as they got some new suites down Peachtree.
They got some new suites down Peachtree. Left wing for the feds, right wing for the hard heads.
Alongside it getting built, on the policy side, the city of Atlanta introduced a whole spate of legislation that criminalized survival activities.
People with suspended license, broken tail lights, all kind of city ordinance stuff. But no one has committed a crime. They violated the city ordinance. And that's the message that a lot of people don't know. They think, oh, where's the criminals going? There are no criminals there. There are people there. You could be riding down the street with a broken tail light. But you'll get a ticket because you're able to pay. But for the people that are not able to pay, they are locked up in that jail. At least they were. 2007, I think, was my last arrest. I was caught shoplifting at Rich's in Lenox. I told the judge that, you know, every time I stand up here before you, do you think I like it? It's degrading, it's humiliating, it's embarrassing. I don't need nothing. All I need is a job where I can say I'm formerly incarcerated and not worry about being terminated.
There was a sort of being fed up with the way that the answer to every problem in our neighborhoods was answered by more police.
There's no data that correlates public safety being increased and crime going down because we build more cages. More people end up tied up in the criminal legal system. They're robbed of opportunities. They can't go to college because they are not eligible for financial aid. And so now people have to turn deeper into underground economies and deeper into criminal activity so that they can survive. There was a beast in our midst, and the beast was the Atlanta City Detention Center.
There's a picture of me standing in front of the jail with a sign saying close ACDC. Nobody was listening. So we started talking about it, and what we started doing, we said, well, we're gonna starve the beast.
The Honorable Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Mayor Bottoms was running against Mary Norwood, and I think she won by a slim margin.
So help me God.
We met with her. We had the kind of conversation that you and I had. We had the conversation about people in the jail. We had the conversation about with her being a little girl and how she used to go see her daddy, how it impacted her life.
That's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms signing an ordinance that eliminates payment of cash bonds to get out of jail.
Bail reform was kind of like first. That's what we had asked her to do in her first 100 days.
There were people who were languishing in jail on jaywalking charges, loitering, because they couldn't afford a $200 or $300 bail.
You are talking about poor people who are being unfairly incarcerated.
Bail reform legislation, if you were charged with anything not involving a threat of violence or driving under the influence, you were entitled to be booked and then released.
Abolish ICE! When Donald Trump separated the families, children from their families, the mayor said no. She actually ended the ICE contract.
Atlanta will no longer be complicit in a policy that intentionally inflicts misery on a vulnerable population.
Given day, there's only 20 to 25 people that are at the city detention center. And that was the work of community organizers. That was the work of people from Bankhead. That was the work of people from the West End, communities who have been impacted by our broken criminal justice system, saying enough is enough.
One day we got a phone call and saying she's ready to sign. We was gonna have a press conference, meet her in front of ACDC.
Today, we are announcing yet another step in our efforts to reform our criminal justice system in our city. It doesn't mean that we are soft on crime. What it means is that we are taking the proactive step of being one step ahead of crime in our city. And with that, I believe I am to turn the microphone over to Marilyn Wynn from Women on the Rise, and then I'll have...
It was unbelievable feeling. Formerly incarcerated women of color. I have never closed a jail. Have never come close to nobody talking about closing a jail. But I made them see the value.
A swag here.
She felt that. I felt a genuine heart-to-heart love and connection with her.
At that moment, did you feel like the battle was won?
I knew the battle wasn't won. I knew the battle wasn't won because we got so many people wanting to see people in jail.
My name is Patrick Labatt. I'm the sheriff of Fulton County. I worked for the city for 30 years, retired as chief. I come from the era of Red Dog and, tough on crime and take a bite out of crime, to now the perception is that Atlanta's the place to go because you won't be held accountable for your crimes.
Housing in this place, workspace, and if you think about where we are physically...
What's going through your mind as she announces that?
Well, it's a unique position I was in, and let's be factual. She said she was getting out of the jail business, right? Because even to this very day, we're still in the jail business.
The images are surreal.
The coronavirus is spreading fast.
They say that this will, grow exponentially.
Hospital beds at Grady Memorial Hospital are officially at a premium.
The world has seen nothing like this.
The final meeting of the task force was scheduled for March. We ended up not making it to that final meeting. From that point, things kind of were at a standstill.
The pandemic was really showing and illuminating a light on all of the injustice and all of the disparities. It was shining a big light on it that we could not ignore.
They kill black men and women.
When you burn down this city, you're burning down our community.
It was so much happening, and pressure was coming from everywhere with the mayor, on the mayor. Crime rising. This happening. Police leaving.
It's happening across the country in cities big and small, a dramatic spike in homicides.
Because there were multiple crises going on, it felt like the detention center needed to be on the back burner.
We'll officially call the meeting to order. This is the beginning of us doing a whole assessment of the Atlanta Detention Center. I think that, what a difference a year makes, like 100%. With the rise in crime, I think we need to explore all options.
I'm Atlanta City Council member Michael Julian Bond.
My name is Felicia Moore, and I'm president of the Atlanta City Council, and I'm also a candidate for mayor.
I do not support closing our corrections facility.
I don't stand on the side of closing the jail.
We're experiencing the worst crime wave in a generation, and I want to make sure that the questions are asked.
There's a perception that there's no punishment in Atlanta. There's no repercussions for committing these acts. And that's not what you want either.
What I don't want us to do is to send a message that we are not a law and order city.
We have to really take a larger view, use a different lens and say, okay, are we going to allow people to break the law with no consequences?
Other people across the country are listening to us, especially the criminals. Criminals know where to go when they want to do their stuff.
We have got to get these people that are causing these crime problems, the bad guys, off the street.
Too many criminals on the street, so I think we need all the jail space we can get at this point. If, in fact, the leadership of the city was doing its job, it would be filled to capacity.
But the people who are in the detention center, they haven't committed those crimes. They have committed traffic violations, minor offenses that don't put people's lives in danger.
But again, perception is reality, right? If I know that it's okay for me to ride around with weed in my car, see, you couldn't do that when I was young, right? You going to jail, and there were consequences for that.
Do you think the young people who are doing the things you're talking about, do you think they understand that if they go to jail, if they have an arrest record, the kinds of ways that affects their ability to get jobs down the road and those sorts of things?
So there are two sides to that answer. The first is probably don't think about it because they're young and 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right? I used to be the same way. The larger picture that people lose sight of is when you lock somebody up, there should be consequences.
Someone broke in your car and you have them put in jail, do you think they're gonna die there? No, they're coming back. But if you can figure out why they keep breaking in cars, what's wrong with them, and address that issue, then you won't have them breaking in your car again.
You can go back to, we need more jails, we need more police. And I think a lot of people in communities just want a solution, and maybe that's just an easier solution to turn to. That's one we've been told again and again. I think there's a lot that's been said over time about white fear of crime, white fear of violence, and the solution to that being to lock black and brown people in a cage.
I think on the surface, if you say, you know what, I want to take a place of suffering or perceived suffering and make it into a beautiful place of healing, I don't think you'll get any disagreement about that. But the devil is in the details.
The taxpayers have spent and invested and paid for that building, and it is perfectly good to use. The symbolism, I believe, for them would be great if they saw the building go down, but there's a cost to that symbolism.
I understand the PR about it. It's a beautiful story, but it's extremely Pollyannic.
Dynamic transformation.
It was Mayor Bottoms who said that Atlanta will no longer be in the jailing business. And so I believe it's Mayor Bottoms' role to lead on this.
When she speaks on the issue, she speaks very clearly. Unfortunately, she just hasn't, spoken about it enough.
Do you think the mayor still wants to close the jail?
I don't think she's sure. I don't think that she's sure.
All right. All ready.
Great. What does the Atlanta City Detention Center mean to you?
Well, I used to work as a prosecutor down in municipal court. So for me, it meant seeing primarily African-American men coming in by the busload, literally. I have so many personal stories, having family members locked up on something very simple, but then it creates this domino effect. You can't pay a traffic fine, so you're held in jail, and then you lose your job, and then you can't pay your rent or you can't pay your child support, and it just creates this never-ending cycle, especially in the African-American community.
What would you like to see happen?
What I like to see is that this massive facility, 500,000 nearly square feet, that it become a symbol of hope for our communities. We need a place where people can have 24-hour daycare. We need a place where someone can walk in and get drug counseling and support services. We had so much support and goodwill for that. And unfortunately, we've done a 180 from that moment, back to the 1990s, 80s model of lock them all up. I've heard before there's overcrowding in Fulton County Jail. Well, the reality is Fulton County's had an overcrowding problem for decades. The mayor, and the mayor only, is the one who negotiates agreements, intergovernmental agreements. So they can have any number of task force that they want. They are slowing it down, and any recommendations that they make will not bind me as mayor and will not bind the city.
Can you close a jail without city council?
Well, we're going to continue to go through the legislative process. There are things that I can do as mayor And there are other things that we will need city council approval on.
We continue the work to reimagine and repurpose our city jail.
Do you feel like you can be doing more publicly, outwardly, to talk about this?
I talk about it all of the time, but I don't dictate the news cycle. So if the entire country and globe is dealing with a pandemic, then that's what the news cycle and reporters like you will ask me to speak about. I think sometimes the anger and frustration is misguided because there are parts of this process that are in the hands of city council right now. To put the same level of expectation and pressure on council that has been given to me at certain points, I think would be most productive. Once the legislation is approved by city council, it's going to be about a 15-month process. So every day that city council sits on this legislation and some council members go through the theatrics of appearing to be tough on crime to appeal to voters in certain neighborhoods that they don't normally appeal to. With every day they do that is another day lost. Official. Our administration has done more than any other administration in the history of this city to get us to where we are on criminal justice reform. For our advocates, it's not happening fast enough. But we've made progress, and I can tell you, before I became mayor, there was no progress being made. There was a lot of talk and a lot of frustration. The progress is being made, and we're going to keep pushing.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of manpower, emotional, mental. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Bold progressive change requires a lot of courage, a lot of factors to come together at the right moment.
This is a marathon. Advocacy is always a marathon. Fighting against to eliminate systems that have been here for hundreds of years that have oppressed people that look like me is not a one and done type of fight. It's a everyday.
I don't know if I had a hard life or was it just natural because I was black, but I know that I've given the system a lot of my time. 41 years of my life has been under correctional control, but it started out as one arrest led to all of those things, and all I needed was a service. I needed someone to give me a job, and today, instead of me working and meeting you, I would have been retired and sitting at home somewhere, maybe rocking grandbabies or great-grandbabies, but I'm working.
It is abundantly clear to me today that it is time to pass the baton on to someone else.
The next 8 months, do you think you're going to be able to see that through?
I sure hope so. But leadership sometimes is about gracefully passing off the baton to the next person to carry it and finish what you started.